And also, first of all, Remi and Maillard, Head of Services by Airbus. Then Christian Schere, our Chief Commercial Officer. And Philippe Mhun, our EVP Programs and Services. We'll have a chance for Q&As later on after this panel discussion is done. But I'd like to start with Airbus is almost celebrating its 50th birthday in the next couple of weeks. And Airbus has been innovating for 50 years. I'd like to start with asking our guests here, what is the connection with Airbus and aviation that got you into aviation? Christian, perhaps you'd like to start.
Thanks, Justin. Good morning, everyone. My connection with Airbus and with this industry is very personal, I'm afraid. Many, many years ago, in fact, in October of 1972, I'm not going to tell you how old I was, not very old. I watched, holding my mom's hand, standing on top of the old Toulouse airport, I watched an airplane take off, and that was an Airbus A300B. It was serial number 001. It was the prototype of the first Airbus ever flying, and on board was my beloved late dad. That, of course, is an image that remains with me, and I suppose I developed, through the admiration I had for my old man, a fascination for this great human adventure and this great European adventure. Amazing to see these machines fly from point to point around the world, and to see many, many people converge to create a magnificent industrial success story.
Thank you, Christian. Philippe.
So for me, I was a 7-year-old kid in 1969. Now you have the math, you can deduct my age. When my father, who was a pilot, brought me to watch the first flight of the Concorde. And then my father became one of the first A320 pilots, so you can imagine my emotional connection to this company, but also to our industry.
Super, thank you. And Remi, I know that you have a different background. What's your story?
Well, Justin, I come from a slightly different world than Christian and Philippe. I come from a world where the wings are not fixed. I come from a world where mission performance is instrumental as well, where missions is all about saving lives, all about protecting people, protecting states, connecting cities, and reaching everywhere, wherever the other transportation means cannot go. So as you understood, I come from helicopters, Airbus helicopters, where I serve mostly as a chief engineer. And I'm often asked, well, Remi, what are the major differences or similarities between the helicopters and the airplanes industries? Well, let me tell you something. There is one major similarity. It's all about safety. As a chief engineer, I was faced with complex situations, with serious incidents, and I understand the importance of safety. I understand what it takes to secure safety all along the value chain, from engineering to manufacturing to services. And safety remains our core focus every day.
Thank you, Remi. I'd just like to remind everybody that actually we delivered the 12,000th Airbus aircraft yesterday. It was an A220 to Delta Airlines. But now I'd like to go on to the market and the state of the market at the moment. We always have tailwinds and headwinds in the market. It's a complex situation, but it's not something that we've not dealt with many, many times before. What's the market like, Christian? What's the big picture?
Well, that's a very, very global question. I think I can safely say the market remains quite positive. It's a very globalized market by now. Our industry, or that of our customers, air transportation, is clearly continuing its trend towards deregulations. It's increased competitiveness therefore. I think I can also say that whilst there are around the globe always dark clouds here and there, geographical, etc., globally this industry is not as cyclical as it was before. And as mankind strives towards economic growth and wealth, we all know air transportation grows at least the rate of the economy, typically 1.5 to 2 times the rate of the economy. Globally, yeah, we're still in a pretty healthy situation. Very large, growing economies, not a scoop here. India is the highest growth rate currently, China, but many other nations around the world still grow. That outweighs positively those areas that tend to be a little bit flatter, but overall we're still in a very growing competitive environment.
And Philippe, for aircraft programs?
In fact, you are reporting every day in your news how the world is looking like today. And when I'm having a look at some of the, for example, geopolitical impact, Brexit, we had to try to anticipate on what Brexit rules would look like in terms of customs, for example, not to impact our operation. So it means that we're working on it, securing exceptions at customs, exemptions, to secure our continuous flow of operation. Second thing has to do with overall with the economics. Fuel price on one side is impacting our customers. China-US trade tensions potentially could affect the overall economics. So this is where more than ever, I mean, we need to support our customers in the cloudy time because they remember of what we have done for them when times would be better. And also we are a leader of an ecosystem, so we have a big influence on our supply chain, for example, and this is where, as an industry, we need to overall, in a holistic manner, support our customers.
Thank you very much. I know Remi would like to get to the next question, so I'll get to the next question. The next question is, how is aviation coping with the market situation? What are our customers doing to deal with this? And more importantly, what is Airbus doing to cope with this? Let's start with Philippe.
Basically, what we want to do is first to address their needs. And the needs in our industry has to do with volumes. So we are adapting our production rates, and this is where, so we have a plan to increase regularly our capacity. We're also building some new final assembly line. This is typically the case for the A220 in Mobile, Alabama. In the meantime, we're ensuring our customers that wherever they're taking the aircraft from, would it be Europe, would it be China, would it be Europe, we deliver the same high standard quality, which of course is an objective. And then the last one has to do with delivering more and more reliable aircraft, fuel efficient, and this is how we can support them. And of course, we're talking about innovation, that we want to provide our customer with the innovation that matters to them and not to us as engineers, for example.
Thank you. Christian.
Adaptability is the key. On the product side, on the programmatic side, on the globalization, but certainly also when it comes to commercial solutions. Airbus has developed a history of being very, very intimate in its understanding of its customers, very close to our customers. So we tailor our solutions to our customers' needs on the product side, technically, on the service side, as I'm sure Remi will elaborate on, and commercially. You know, there's 37,000 airplanes to be built in the next 20 years. And throughout the world, not one airline is exactly like the other airline. So flexibility is very, very much the key.
And Remi, In terms of services, what do you see?
As explained by Christian and Philippe, the airlines are facing a fierce competitive environment. They can rely on a growing market, but the yields are decreasing. So the airlines need to focus on the core business. They need to focus on transporting packs from A to B. And they want no surprise. They want zero surprise. They want to rely on a robust ecosystem of services to master the operations and to streamline the cost base. For the airlines, it's all about safety, it's all about operational performance, cost competitiveness, and passenger experience. So the services market to address these challenges is quite large. We value this market over the next 20 years up to $4.6 trillion. And this is basically, Christian, the same ballpark as the aircraft market. It's $2.2 trillion for the aircraft easy-to-operate solutions. Basically, all what you need to have the aircraft in flyable conditions, from engineering to dismantling, including maintenance and spares. It's $1.5 trillion for the flight operation solutions, all what you need to fly the aircraft, the pilots, the training, the operating centers. And it's $0.9 trillion for the passenger experience, what you need to differentiate, like the connectivity, the IFE, the cabin upgrade. And obviously, to capture this very large market, you need to be close to your customers. And this is why we located 40% of our services by Airbus teams outside of Europe. This is why we launched, under your leadership, Philippe, the Customer Lighthouse program, which is an exchange program together with the airlines to embed the customer mindset into Airbus's operations.
Thank you, Remi. Competition is driving innovation at airlines. This means they need to explore new models and explore new territories. How is Airbus responding to this requirement from the airlines? Christian?
Well, let's get back to basics. Let's get back to our products. The competition that drives the economic solutions that the decreasing yields or the increased traffic calls for constantly forces airplane manufacturers to adapt their product offering. What we have done most recently, as you know, you mentioned the 12,000th delivery was an A220. Well, we innovated in a different way by actually acquiring an aircraft program that had been clean sheet designed for the lower segments of the market. Remember, our product offering with the A320 family is extremely successful, but as you shrink an airplane, I'm thinking 318, 319, yeah, your economic efficiency of that particular airplane decreases by definition. It's per seat a heavier aircraft. So there was this thing called the C series out there, clean sheet design, tailor-made for that particular market. Well, it's pretty innovative, right? Instead of redesigning our own airplanes, we actually acquired this very, very good airplane program. I call that innovation in the business sense as well. So that's how we adapt. We'll talk about other products later.
And Christian, I mean, the way the aircraft is used, it's used on different missions, different mission lengths. It's quite versatile.
The A220, yeah. A wonderful machine, very, very flexible, very versatile. It's an airplane that can do short hops with a very, very effective 5 abreast cross-section, but it can also fly long ranges. Take here in Europe, for example, Air Baltic flies up to 1,500 miles with this airplane. In the US, the airplane is being deployed on longer sectors as well. But then it also does short hops. Very, very flexible airplane, and our customers absolutely love that 5 abreast cabin.
Thank you, Philippe.
Yeah, in fact, this aircraft is just an amazing piece of technology. I was part of the team which assessed the aircraft. What we can say is that yesterday we delivered our 12,000th aircraft. You mentioned it. delivered to Delta Airline, and it was a 220. What we did is that we gradually integrated this A220 in our programs processes within Airbus. We're going to be able to turn it in an economical success, economy of scales. Christian's team is going to sell a lot of them, and of course, together with our suppliers, with our partner, we still have to optimize the cost baseline of the aircraft. But guess what? We have a certain bargaining power, and I think we can make it happen. We also wanted to deliver to our US market the aircraft from the US, so the Mobile FAL is going to deliver the first aircraft in the second quarter 2020. And also the aircraft is bringing onboard innovation, and when I'm looking to the Delta aircraft being delivered, is providing wireless IFE, is providing Wi-Fi, so it's a bit like an at-home kind of experience for the passengers.
Thank you, Philippe. How about services and new territories, Remi?
As for any other Airbus product, we will deliver services on the A220. And the A220 is a digital native aircraft, so it will enable us to offer the complete range of services, leveraging on our Skywise digital backbone. A220 is definitely part of our services ambition, which is to explore new territories, to expand our services portfolio, to generate more value for our customers. As announced at Farnborough last year, we target to deliver $10 billion services revenue in the next decade. So we are definitely on track with this target. And our focus is on optimizing the aircraft operational availability, on streamlining flight operations, and on enhancing passenger experience. So we opened last year 2 new training centers in Denver, USA, and in India. We can now rely on 17 training centers all over the world, and we'll continue to grow this network to meet our customer needs, and also to enhance the flight training standards. Our FHS business, Flight Air Services, can now rely on 29 customers all over the world as well. We expanded in the Americas with JetSmart, Azul, Viva Colombia in Japan, with the A380 fleet of All Nippon Airways, with the amazing painting in China as well, with China Express. And we observed that when our customers combine FHS, Flight Air Services, with our fleet technical management offer, this results in major operational performance improvements. We also support our customers to differentiate, to generate more revenues with our upgrade programs. We are, for instance, supporting Singapore Airlines to refurbish the cabin of the A380 fleet. And we're exploring new business models, such as the Ab Initio cadet pilot training. We opened our 2 first schools in Mexico and in France. And we see that definitely as an enabler to catch the big wave of pilots that will be required in the next 20 years. We anticipate no less than 540,000 pilots to be trained over the next 20 years. We are also developing services to the lessors to maximize the value of the asset, to manage to streamline the transitions as well, and we leverage to do so on the AMA, the Airbus MRO Alliance. So pretty much an exciting journey in front of us to explore these new territories.
Thank you, Remi. It sounds like services are pretty versatile too, as well as the versatility that you've shown for our small aircraft. Versatility seems to be a common factor here. What about for the medium-sized aircraft?
You're right, versatility is the name of the game. Perhaps, Justin, if you allow me, on the 220, just before we leave it, I'm not sure I made the point forcefully enough that this airplane actually opens a new market access for Airbus, because it addresses, yes, the more traditional regional airlines that were not traditionally Airbus customers, but at the same time, you can see that it is also a mainline aircraft. Now we have an airplane that spans these 2 market segments. But to your question, in the, let's call it, middle of the market, here again, there isn't a one-solution-fits-all recipe on this. What Airbus has in the middle of the market, which I remind everyone is by far the most competitive one, This is where the bulk of the airlines compete with each other. And for every market, you have several airlines competing with each other. In this market space, you want to have the most flexible economic solution for your customers. Now, Airbus's solution is a twofold solution. It's the A320, A321, in particular the latter, the 321, that for the first time on a single-aisle airplane offers wide-body economics and gradually wide-body range for single-aisle trip costs. And at the same time, we have a very, very proven program, the A330, now also re-engined, so that we keep innovating and staying on the forefront of economic efficiency. So we have a left hook, right hook approach to this middle of the market segment with absolutely unbeatable economics. One, because these airplanes are designed with the latest engine technology and therefore the lowest fuel consumption, not to mention the comfort levels. But at the same time, both programs, ladies and gentlemen, are so mature that it gives Airbus, let's call it the pricing flexibility that we need to address this extremely competitive segment of the market. So I like to think that from a competitive posture, we kind of have a rock, the A321, and a hard place, the A330. You can imagine our strategy with respect to potential new emergence in this segment.
Thank you, Christian, very well put. Philippe.
So we're all passengers in the room, and we know we love when we have the same kind of passenger experience across our journeys. And this is what airspace is bringing, same passenger experience across our Airbus family. And what does it bring? It brings space, it brings an atmosphere with mood lighting, but it's bringing also operational assets like the XL bins, which of course is allowing each of us to put our luggage in, but also which is really smoothening the turnaround time of the aircraft, and this is something that matters in the operation. You were talking about the versatility of our products. Looking back to how 330neo is operating, it's delivering on its performance, it's delivering on its reliability, customer feedback is very good, and this is really important. The next baby of the family, the Dash 800 certification process is on track. It will be done before the end of the year. And then when I'm having a look, and we're talking about the different markets, let's have a look at the Chinese market. 330 is being operated there, Air China, China Southern, China Eastern. And we can witness a kind of operation which is a 1-hour domestic operation up to a long-haul operation which is 10 hours with the same platform. So you can imagine the value it's bringing to our customers.
Thank you, Philippe. Remi.
Well, new cabin solutions or new cabin services will definitely contribute and enhance this versatility, starting with new cabin architectures to be offered both in line fit and in retrofit. The illustration that you see on the slide is a city corner concept. It's a concept for business class that has been developed having the A321 long range in mind. And it's quite an interesting one because it twists the usual business class wisdom, allowing the passenger to recline and not the seat. It has been developed from a conventional, lightweight, economy seat with a comfortable sofa-style environment next to it, allowing you to relax in different positions and also to enjoy a full flat bed. So it's simple, it's easy to maintain, there's no complex mechanism, it's light, so we see a lot of potential in this concept. As mentioned by Philippe, versatility comes also with more carry-on luggage capacity. American Airlines decided to equip its new A321neos with a new cabin featuring the XL bins. And they are also going through a very ambitious retrofit program of the complete single-aisle fleet, 202 aircraft, with exactly the same cabin configuration including the XL beams. We are also developing the connected cabin, leveraging on the IoT, the Internet of Things, to connect together all the cabin hardware elements, being the bins, the seats, and the galleys, and the lavatories. And there are galore applications for this IoT, for this connected cabin. It's not a concept any longer. We have concrete use cases like the predictive maintenance for the cabin, or like simple, fast digital check inspection of the cabin safety equipment.
Thank you, Remi. Well, talking about connectivity and digitalization, I mean, one of the most connected aircraft flying today is probably the A350. How does this innovation translate into value for the large size aircraft? Christian?
Well, the A350 clearly is a star. Why do we have an A350 in this segment? This segment, the large aircraft, the intercontinental super long range flying, this is where you want a premium experience and a premium program. When your customers, our customers, put passengers into an airplane for 18 hours or 19 hours, as Singapore is doing now between the US and Singapore, this is where you want the highest quality and the avant-garde of your technology to be deployed. You also need it because that's where efficiency counts most. I'll give you an example. And allow me to be a little bit aggressive here. An A350, which is the only new long-range airplane out there, will take off from deep into Asia when it flies to the United States with 45 tons less weight at every takeoff than the old 777, this old Hummer, re-engined Hummer. So 45 tons, 45,000 kilos at every takeoff. Imagine that to the bottom line of your customers. That's where the power of technology becomes the most visible. That's why Airbus chose a clean sheet design in this segment for our customers. Not to mention the cabin. For those of you who haven't flown the A350, it's the next generation.
Thank you, Christian. And of course, there's flexibility in use between the two different types of 350s, the 900 and the larger 1000, like Qatar Airways, for example.
Sure, full flexibility. The Dash 900 is the first that had entered service. We now have two operators flying the Dash 1000. Very, very happy with them. Philippe, this is, clearly a delight, this program. The 1000 is now Airbus's largest module and will be the flagship for large capacity, long range flying for years to come. The only really new high technology airplane out there. Not surprising, its economic signature is what it is.
Thank you. Philippe?
So for us, the 350 is also the programs of all superlative. You mentioned the technology, but this program is running like a Swiss clock. We are producing 10 aircraft per month. The operational reliability of the aircraft reached more than 99% in less than 2 years, when it took, for example, more than 5 years for the 787. The Dash 1000, like you mentioned, Christian, is really up and running, and our two customers are so happy with the passenger experience, performance side, and so on. So the good thing with the program is that there are no surprises for our customers. And you know, sometimes no surprise has a lot of value for our customers in terms of predicting their operation, their delivery, and so on. So this is the value of the 350.
Thank you, Philippe. And Remi?
Well, just in one word, Skywise. We definitely rely on Skywise, our digital platform, to generate more value for our customers. Skywise enables to integrate in a consistent way different capabilities, to offer new possibilities, new opportunities to our customers. we used to model the services environment in a rather fragmented way, with the maintenance on the one hand, then the flight ops, training over there, the upgrades, the digital. It used to look a bit like in a grocery store, you know, with the milk, the eggs, the sugar, and the flour. Skywise enables to integrate all these ingredients together and to deliver what the customer actually wants. When you bundle the aircraft data, like the reliability, the health, the predictive, together with the maintenance data, like the repair data, the inventory data, the supply chain data, you can secure the availability of the right part at the right time, in the right location, in the right amount. And this means operational performance. This means cost competitiveness. When you join the flight ops world, together with the maintenance world, or the tech ops world, you can schedule the unscheduled. You can perform the right maintenance action at the right time, in an optimized way. This is an actual breakthrough, and it's happening now. It's not back to the future, it's happening now. We can already rely on more than 70 Skywise customers, 70 Skywise customers, offering a potential of more than 7,000 connected aircraft. All Skywise fleet performance capabilities are already available. Skywise reliability, Skywise predictive, Skywise health monitoring. We were at MRO Atlanta last month, and one of our customers, Allegiant, told us that Skywise enables to save 1 AOG every day. It saves 1 AOG every day. And Skywise also enables to streamline the internal cost of the airline. Take the release of a reliability report. It used to take like 1 week, right? Now with Skywise, it's 1 click. You go from 1 week to 1 click. And the Skywise maintenance-related capabilities will be unveiled very soon at Le Bourget in the frame of our FHS powered by Skywise offer.
Thank you, Remi. It sounds like it's pretty disruptive innovation, these services that you're bringing in. Let's talk about innovation at Airbus. Innovation for its own sake is, if it doesn't bring in value, then what's the use of it? So what value does this innovation that Airbus champions, what value does it bring in for the airlines and the customers? Christian?
Well, in the increasing competitiveness of this deregulated air transportation market, economic drivers and but also product differentiation is what every customer is looking for. And you know, if you reflect back on the 50 years of Airbus's history, it's pretty easy to see a trend that the successful programs are the ones that really bring a step of improved productivity or economic signature to your customers. And the programs, inversely, that don't necessarily do that tend not to be the greatest successes. And if you look at Airbus's history, starting from, yes, this differentiated product of being the first wide-body twin-engined aircraft to the first two-man cockpit, which reduces labor costs associated with airplanes, to the first carbon aerostructures, reducing weight and therefore fuel burn, to the first fly-by-wire, reducing maintenance cost, increasing reliability of this machine tool. That history of Airbus is paved with value, commercial value being brought to your customer. And in this marketplace, when a supplier brings significant commercial value, nature has it in a way that you share that value between the customer and the supplier. So again, innovation does not necessarily mean technological innovation. As I mentioned before, with the A220, it's innovation through mergers and acquisitions that brings value to our customers. The A220, a great airplane, now being distributed by Airbus, that brings a lot new value to your customers. The A350, clearly the most modern aircraft out there in the long-range sector. Innovative solution, single aisle, wide body, the ability to do mixed fleet flying between the two in the middle of the market. So bringing that value, that differentiation capability in terms of pricing, airline pricing, in terms of cabin comfort, in terms of features, in terms of cargo on top of passengers, that's what creates this innovative value. And look back, I think you will find that Airbus has brought a lot to this marketplace and continues to do so.
Thank you, Christian. Philippe.
First, the digital disruption is opening some new field of collaboration. It's collaboration with our customers during the cabin definition phase in our cabin definition center in Hamburg. We're using virtual reality, using our 3D mock-up for the customer to be able to appreciate the look and feel of the cabin in a 3D environment along the design process. And you can imagine how much reactivity is bringing, how much co-creation opportunity is bringing, and that's really important. A second example is our project, so-called DDMS, or Digital Design Manufacturing and Services. And here, having a look at the design phase, it's really bringing 3D models to the designers, design assistants, and of course, it's shortening the lead time to design a given system, a given cabin. At the same time, it's ensuring a kind of right first-time design, and also we can simulate the manufacturability of the pieces. And this is what at the end is really robustifying the end-to-end design process. And I'm sure that Remi will elaborate on the services side. Remi, you mentioned that the 220 was a digitally born aircraft, and this is also, we're leveraging this digital availability of data to further develop some new version. So an additional takeoff weight of 2.2 tons can be designed very quickly, and it's bringing 450 nautical miles to the customers, allowing them to operate some new routes, and that's a benefit of the digital journey too.
Thank you, Philippe. Let me just highlight this. So are you saying that the maximum takeoff weight of the 220 has been increased by 2.2 tons?
Yeah.
Additional 400?
This is a bit of a scoop for today, so for us and for you, I guess.
Okay, well that's some news for you guys. I guess, Remi.
New technologies, innovation will also disrupt the way we deliver services. Philippe, you mentioned virtual reality. Well, virtual reality will also be a breakthrough in the way we perform training, both the flight training and the maintenance training, because it will enable us to rely on light, remote, connected training devices that will complement, not replace, more sophisticated means, such as the full flight simulators. And we see virtual reality as a major enabler to catch the big wave of pilots and mechanics that is expected for the coming 20 years. I think I already mentioned that we anticipate 540,000 pilots to be trained over the next 20 years, and it's basically the same amount of mechanics that will be required over the same period, over the next 20 years. I mentioned IoT, Internet of Things, when referring to the connected cabin. There are galore applications of Internet of Things, like computing the actual weight of the aircraft, not the theoretical weight with all the margins everywhere, but the actual weight, taking into consideration the actual weight of the cargo, the actual weight of the packs, the actual weight of the catering. Think about all the potential optimization and savings in terms of fuel, carbon footprint, trajectory optimization. ALM, additive layer manufacturing, will also disrupt our supply chain management, our spares management, and Sater is definitely one of the first movers in this field. Now, new processes, you mentioned DDMS, Philippe, digital design, manufacturing, and services. New processes will disrupt the way we do services as well. You know, as as a former chief engineer, I can tell you that we used to develop aircraft in a rather sequential way, starting with the vehicle, the platform, then addressing the industrial system, and eventually the support and services framework. Well, today with DDMS, we have embarked into a much more integrated, into a much more concurrent journey, developing at the same time the product in itself, the vehicle, the industrial framework, and the services in a so-called system of systems approach. And I see that very much as a major opportunity for services to voice requirements, to influence the architecture of the aircraft very upstream in the process. And the illustration on the slide is a Skyways solution, not Skywise, just in Skyways. That's a parcel delivery solution that we've been developing in Singapore, and I know the former chief engineer of this one. And what's interesting with this solution is that we did not only develop the drone, the octocopter that you see on the slide, but we delivered in a holistic way the complete environment, meaning the parcel stations, the air traffic management, the operating center, even the application to allow you to book a transportation with this system. So that's pretty exciting.
Wow, thank you, Remi. I think it's time to go green. Innovation makes our products more eco-efficient and greener. How is Airbus contributing to sustainable aviation growth? Philippe, perhaps, or we can start with you.
First, eco-efficiency stands together with fuel burn, and this is the reality. So we are on a consistent manner improving the performance of our aircraft. We are not doing it only, we are doing it with our supply base. So it's also our responsibility to have on board our suppliers in a more eco-responsible journey, in the way we produce, in the performance, and that's really important. The second thing is the way we manufacture our platform, and here our A350 final assembly line or the mobile final assembly line are really eco-efficient industrial systems in terms of fluid treatment, in terms of all the other topics. And I think this is where Airbus, as a leader in the industry, need also to pave the way. As citizens, but also as a major leader of the industry.
Thank you, Philippe. Christian, I mean, being green is also good business.
You said it. What's good for our products is to reduce their fuel burn. That's the name of the game. It's the #1 cost chapter for our carriers, our customers. So as you reduce fuel burn, you're directly correlating your reduced emissions footprint, right? So nature, I dare say here, keeps us all very honest. But I think we can add one point to this, and that is that the genesis of Airbus is here in Europe. And as you all know, the Europeans, be it politically or at the citizens level, I think are significantly more environmentally conscious or sensibilized to these issues than perhaps in other regions of the world. And therefore the regulatory environment for us, in daily life, in industry, but also in air transportation, is one that tends to force us to be significantly more innovative and more conscious of environmental sustainability. The good news is that this industry wants that economically as well. So I think with Airbus you probably have in this industry the champion of environmental sustainability culturally as well as economically.
And could you give some examples about where this journey has taken us in terms of how greener our aircraft have become?
Well, again, the innovations we introduced with take the biggest program in this industry, the A320neo program. It is a program that through a very, very simple decision, Philippe, at least the decision is simple, reduced the carbon footprint of the thousands of airplanes flying in this sector by 15 or more percent. Actually, the performance is even better than we expected, so it's more than 15%. 15% reduction in one program without much disruption for the traveling public or for our customers. On the A350, allow me to say again that on a long-range flight, that A350, being the lighter aircraft with these wonderful XWB engines, is so much lighter, it takes off, did I mention that? With 45 tons less than what many people still believe is the reference aircraft in the large sector. So those are exactly the kind of innovations, the kind of steps, the kind of decisions that our company is making to further the cause of environmentally friendly flying. Let's not underestimate, if you allow me to dwell on this for a second, the cultural dimension of this. Airbus is a genesis of the European aerospace companies and programs. We are not a company that is very ethnocentric. We're not a company that depends strategically on one single customer like our own government. In fact, we have so many governments, they change all the time. So we're very much left to our own device in keeping this innovation flow going on all accounts. Noise, carbon footprint, our own industrial signature. All of these things are very much in our DNA, much more so, I dare say, than other aeronautical firms.
Thank you, Christian. Remi, how are services green?
Well, in Airbus, we don't develop aircraft any longer. We develop aircraft together with services. And we do that in a total life cycle approach. And we rely very much on services to ensure the optimal usage of the very great aircraft that we are developing until the dismantling, and including the dismantling of the aircraft, which we want to do in a green way. There are many actions that we can do today and that we are doing today to go greener. We can rely on the flight trajectory optimization solutions to reduce the auto-optimize the fuel efficiency, like the ones that are provided by NavBlue. We can avoid major repairs, leveraging on Skywise Predictive. We can reduce inventories, we can streamline the overall supply chain, leveraging on FHS powered by Skywise. So definitely, sustainability is at the core of services, and services is a major enabler to go for a more sustainable aviation.
Thank you very much, Remi. We've talked about the innovations and disruptive new ways of doing things and services and programs and the way airlines deal with the market situation. I'd like to look now and finish this panel discussion on the next 50 years. If I can ask you, what innovations do you see will be the key ones in the next 50 years? Perhaps starting with you, Christian.
We talked about sustainability. What I believe in, the company I work for and I love, is got to be a company that keeps this drive to be the actor of its own evolution, as opposed to resisting change. This industry has subscribed, has endorsed very ambitious sustainability goals when it comes to the use of energy. Well, I like to see this company be an actor, a voluntary actor of that change, as opposed to lobbying against it. And if I can be so bold as to have another wish, for this company, for Airbus in the next 50 years, takes us a little bit away from innovation, but not really. I think Airbus has now become the symbol of a pan-European industrial integration and grand vision. I think Airbus stands to become the symbol of a true worldwide global player, not an American player or a French player, even a European player, a Chinese, a worldwide player. That's where I see Airbus being far, far more advanced than others.
Thank you, Christian. Philippe.
I talked about my father, you know, and one of the main reasons I'm in this industry. I would like to formulate a wish for my 3 sons. I would love them to fly an Airbus zero-emission aircraft, 100% on time, and for them experiencing on board the kind of connectivity journey that they're experiencing at home. This is my wish for the coming years.
Great wish. Remi.
So future will be digital. Future will be about connecting more and more data and connecting more and more people and doing that safely. Future, I guess, for Airbus is definitely keeping a pioneer spirit. And the prerequisite for that is to empower our people, our teams at Airbus, and accepting to fail, except when it comes to safety and ethics and compliance. Accepting to fail, but failing fast, learning from that, and adapting fast. And last, I guess that future is about making sure that there will be a future. So it will be about sustainability, about green.
Thank you very much. Well, that brings our panel discussion to an end. What we'll do now, if you could stay there, I'll hop off the stage, but if Stefan would come on stage, and then we'll open the floor to Q&A. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justin, Christian, Philippe, Remi, for this exciting slot. And before we start the Q&A session, let me remind you that the video replays of this session, including the Q&A, will be uploaded on the website you have received this morning. And you can follow the conversations under the hashtag AirbusID for this event. Also, to highlight, there is no embargo, so you can shoot your information immediately. And with this, let's start right away into the Q&A session, and please name your name and the media you're representing. And we have a first question in the room from Edison Showland, Air Insight.
I have to introduce myself. Thank you, I don't have to introduce myself. Question about the 220 increased tonnage. Can you just walk us through what that means in range and capability, please?
Can we please distribute the press release in the room?
I may, what your engineers have developed gives us 450 nautical miles more range at virtually no extra cost.
Both versions, the 100 and the 300?
What applies to one would apply to the other, yeah.
Next question, please, third row here.
Good morning. It's working? Yeah. My name is Jorge Valero. I work for El Economista and a process-based media called Euractiv. I have 2 questions. The first one is if you could be more specific on the impact of Brexit, the trade war, and a potential increase of, the approval of, for example, a tax on kerosene, which is an idea discussed and proposed by some European parties on your profits. For example, such a tax could decrease the number of passengers by 10%. And the second question, specifically on the trade war, if the trade war between the US and China continues to escalate, are you afraid that maybe you will have to take sides? I mean, for example, you have an important assembly factory in Alabama, so I don't know if you are concerned by potential, let's say, decisions or restrictions that the Trump administration could impose on US-based companies, even if they are Europeans?
Some of those questions are maybe for Guillaume Faury, our CEO, this evening, but feel free what you want to answer, otherwise we revert this question for tonight. Okay.
I'd just say that, yeah, taxation of this industry is generally not something that develops growth. And therefore, whether it's tariff-based taxation or general taxation on fuel is not something that I would qualify as being very, very useful. In particular, you mentioned trade tariffs. We believe that those are lose-lose propositions because we are in a global industry with global supply chains that cross borders in ways that don't at first meet the eye. So those are not things that we welcome or encourage generally. You had a very vast question, but I allow myself to give you a very general observation here.
Next question goes to John Ostrower, Air Current.
Good morning. Question about the A321XLR concept. Where are you in that process right now, and has your timing or thinking around that product changed at all with the goings-on with Boeing and its own challenges on 737 MAX right now, as far as it deferring decisions on the NMA? And also, kind of a connected question, we talked about the importance of the A220 as a strategic acquisition. How does that move inform how you think about the development of new aircraft from clean sheet of paper, as far as the cost and the expenditure you make strategically, and as you think about what Bombardier went through to actually achieve that program, how that applies to potentially modifying or significantly updating or replacing even one day the A320 family?
Perhaps to answer your first question, I mean, customers are always asking for additional range, and the mission capability of the aircraft is important. So whenever they are coming to us, we're investigating it, and this is the phase we're in. Then, second question perhaps for you, Christian? Or,
I think on the second question, the clean sheet design, I think we've recently proven what incremental innovation does. I'll give you a very simple example, if I may, and tell me if I answered your question. Look at the middle of the market. Airbus has, I dare say, very successfully re-engined the A321 and is producing these X, Y, Z, LR versions of increased growth for this particular airplane, and it has re-engined the A330. All of that at a fraction, literally a fraction of the cost of the development of a brand new program. On the 220, maybe not a very nice thing to say, but the huge development cost of the A220 was borne by Bombardier. And picking up that program along the way has allowed Airbus to benefit from that without the risk and the cost associated to the development of a clean sheet of paper. Now, you mentioned the NMA. I have to say there's a part of me that wishes Boeing makes that mistake. Because think about the NMA, what does it really bring to the market? We talked about this earlier in terms of innovation, bringing value to your customer. What value does this airplane bring to the airlines? The engines are contemporary engines. The cabin is a hybrid between a single-aisle A321 and a wide-body A330. What value does this program bring to the market? Are we better off investing incrementally to re-engine perfectly fine airplanes like the A321 and A330? Or are we better off pulling out the checkbook and spending, God knows, how many double-digit billions to develop a brand new program that really doesn't bring anything new to the market? Yeah. So as we look at this chessboard, we believe that we're on very solid ground with this incremental improvement, just utilizing the best technology out there and incrementally introducing it into our airplane programs.
Another comment regarding the next program. We're already working on it. With DDMS, the Digital Design Manufacturing System, we want to pave the way for a successful ramp-up. Because the reality is that today, our 320 family, we are next to 60 aircraft produced per month. And guess what? We need to, for whatever platform in the future, this would be the rate we talked about, with ramp-up in 6 months, reaching this kind of level. So here, mastering the end-to-end digital journey is probably a strong asset to be in a position whenever the market will call for the next generation, whenever there will be a justification for this big next step, zero-emission aircraft. I mean, we would be ready not only designing the aircraft, but in the manufacturing system, but also in the services that will come with it to secure the operation of the aircraft.
So next question goes to...
I think, excuse me, Stefan, one word I think I would like to add. You mentioned the current Boeing situation. Our product strategy is not correlated to the current Boeing situation. I want to underline that forcefully.
Next question goes to Robert Wall, Wall Street Journal.
Hi, gentlemen. Just had a question for actually, A350 question basically. Christian, where do you see the market in terms of value in increasing rates beyond rate 10? And then Philippe, where are you in terms of supply chain, both internal and external, in being able to go to a higher rate 13 potentially, if Christian can sell those planes?
Thanks, Robert. In the foreseeable future, I think rate 10 is about the right rate as we spool up and introduce the Dash 1000. Then our objective will be to increase, but for now, we think rate 10 is about the right flight level.
Thank you, Christian, for your answer, because it's easing my answer.
I'll come back.
Next question goes to John Walton, Runway Girl Network.
Good morning. Christian, talking about the incremental improvements.
Where are you? Oh, right there.
Like, on the A320neo family, and particularly on the A321neo, in advance of the Bourget, obviously, what's your thinking about other potential incremental improvements on this platform? Stretchers, range improvements, XLR, LR2, and so on. How much incremental improvement is left within this aircraft?
I'll give you a bit of a Jesuit answer, because I wish I had more airplanes of the current type to sell right now. Yeah, so never mind changing it again. I think the cabin innovations, as we increase the range of the airplane, that's where you need to look for further value that we can bring to the market. But really, I'm being quite honest with you, I wish I had significantly more airplanes to sell of the existing versions. We're starved for availability, I'm happy to say.
The next question goes to India.
My name is Pranav Mukul. I write for the Indian Express newspaper from New Delhi. So, a lot has been spoken about next generation technologies and how improvements are being made. But where I come from, it's all about cost. Our biggest airline, one of your biggest customers, is a low-cost carrier. So if you could, tell us how beyond fuel efficiency, and since you've already re-engined the 320, what is being done to get better cost efficiencies for budget carriers. At the same time, them not losing out on passenger experience.
Philippe?
I think first of all, the platform we're providing to the market are bringing the additional efficiency that we're talking about. So the minus 15% fuel consumption on the NEO versus what was the CO is something. Then also, how does it fit in the business model of the airlines? And usually low-cost carriers are very much digitalized in their commercial side, e-ticketing and so on. And we see how much Skywise is bringing in terms of consistency. So suddenly you optimize some of the internal process of the airline. Remi was mentioning this reliability report that you are due to the authorities. If it takes you a couple of clicks to get your report being sent, I can tell you it's a huge productivity factor in the engineering side. If we're able to provide predictive capacity to the operation, we know that the low-cost model is very tiny margin per tickets. The fact that you secure the operation of the aircraft with no disruption, I can tell you is a major game changer. So that's why, as a whole, I think we are a solution provider now to those low-cost carriers, and this is what we are bringing, the combination of the platform together with services.
The next question goes to Thomas Hanke from the German Handelsblatt.
Yeah, thank you. Christian, you mentioned the vision of Airbus becoming a truly global integrated player from being a integrated European player. Could you tell us right now where do you stand? You are in the Americas, in China and in Europe. What is the distribution of your value creation between these three, let's say, continents? And where do you want to be in 10 years?
Well, I can tell you where I would love to be, and that is to be closely correlated in our value creation to where our customers are. You have three mega geographical blocks, Europe, Asia and America. I think we need to be present in all. If you look at our global market forecast today, the 37,000 airplanes we talked about earlier, about half of that comes from the broader Asian region. So as you project yourself into the demographics that drive that growth, I think the simple answer to your question, if you allow me this generality, would be that we need to become a little bit more Asian yet.
The next question goes to Russia, Alexander Sheban.
Thank you so much, Stefan. So one of the statements given during this discussion was about A350 is most technologically advanced aircraft within your line. Not only A350, also A220. So two questions about A220. In Montreal, there is a 24/7 customer response center, which is one of the, or maybe most advanced in the world in terms of transfer data, live data from customers to manufacturer line to all departments. So first question, like after almost a year of cooperation with A220, after acquisition of A220, is there any, I would say, innovation would be implemented within the next year or two into A350, A330 line, and vice versa? For example, airspace cabin on A220? Which innovation would be implemented in both directions?
Perhaps I can start with, because you mentioned the Rapid Response Center. We're talking about innovation not only on the product side, we're also having a clear look at what are the best options we can have. We were running a project internally to optimize our AOG management. So our AirTag, Airbus Technical AOG Center, so it was a project called AirTag 2.0. What we did is that we sent our teams over there in Mirabel to have a look at what Bombardier had put together in terms of anticipation, in terms of not predictive but much more health monitoring capabilities, and we learned from it. And now, I mean, probably we're going to use also in the future this North American response center to manage potentially a part of our single aid operation in the US, for example. So we have cross-fertilization about some of our practices. Then in terms of technology, for sure, we have a look at what were the techno options of the 220, and whenever it would be time for an evolution, would it be incremental? We have a set of answers, and it would be a good way, for example, not to redesign systems and just to get the benefit from what we got taking over the program. And I think this was the sense also of acquiring the program. It was a market segment, yes, for sure, but it's also we bought all the knowledge around the product. So we'll make a reasonable usage of it in the future, for sure.
We have another question from over there. Yes, to India, please.
Hi, this is Jeevan Prakash. I'm from India, Outlook magazine. My question is regarding this A320 Neo engine problems. Can you give us an update that, it was reported that the engine had performance-related problems. So can you give us an update?
So I won't enter in some of the technical details. Then I just want to highlight something which is the reality of the industry. Whenever we are developing a new aircraft, a new engine, it comes with its sets of maturity challenges. And this is where we are with the engine manufacturers. I can tell you that they are providing a very sound, robust answer to the early issue that we experienced in the field. I can tell you also that here we're not talking about safety concerns, so safety is ensured, and this is what our chief engineering team are really delivering. We're keeping updated both the airlines and the Indian authority about the progress in terms of the technical standard of the engine. And voilà, this is where we are. A major step in terms of reliability improvement coming in the summer. It's called Block D. We are prioritizing some of the Etfs operation operator to get the improvement onboarded priority on the aircraft, and this is where we are. So again, just have a look at the previous new programs in terms of engine, and you will see that it comes with its sets of challenges, and this is where the industry has a lot of maturity, and I can tell you that both our engine partners are treating it very professionally.
That's very true. The trend lines are very positive in India and elsewhere. And to Philippe's point, the Neo engines introduction, if you look back at the statistics, are better than the introduction of the previous generation engines.
Today, the A320 Neo operational reliability is higher now than the CEO. So that's a given.
To give you a figure, it's at 99.6% in India, and the trend goes towards 99.7%. So that's a figure where we are very pleased with. The next question goes to Italy, please.
Good morning. I'm Gianni Dragoni from Il Sole 24 Ore. I have a question about what has changed about A320 family sales after 10 March of this year, and what's the outlook for this?
You're referring to the Ethiopian accident. I want to tell you very sincerely that has not had an incidence either on the market, because the supply and demand is a pretty set situation for several years ahead, nor has it changed anything to the commercial behavior of Airbus. So I think we should resist the temptation to see a correlation there which isn't there. I mentioned earlier that on March 9, the supply and demand situation was the same as it was on March 12. And I wish I had more airplanes to sell right now.
Okay, next question goes to Sebastian Steinke from the German Flugrevue.
Good morning. I'd like to ask a question about future airplane programs and concepts, please. We have learned about the value of technology, we have learned about the importance of efficiency. I wonder, as airlines come into higher pressure to be climate efficient and environmental protective. Do you see a need or a chance for a future turboprop aircraft, which could be super lightweight, carbon fiber, fast flying, but a step change in efficiency and maybe cleaner as current airplanes can be? And you're a turboprop expert sort of person, and helicopter guys are turboprop minded sort of as well. So you must be open-minded to it. Thank you.
Well, I'll defer to Philippe, who's far more competent than I am to talk about the technologies, but I tell you, yeah.
I would really recommend that this question is being addressed tomorrow, but by Grazia Di Casini and Jean-Brice Dumont. There is a specific session on really techno-innovation, and they will tell you more probably about their perspective. Yeah.
It's true that props are incredibly efficient.
The concept of this innovation day is we start today in the present and we lift you into the future tomorrow. We have the next question from Africa.
Good morning. I'm from Nigeria. My name is Wale Shadari. I think this question goes to Philippe. I want to know if the inroad you've made into Africa in terms of the market, if you have made appreciable inroad into Africa, could you please tell us what you've done in the Nigerian aviation market?
More for Christian.
The question was addressed to me, perhaps as a former UTA guy. I operated in Africa for a long time, but probably in terms of the market, I would ask Christian to address the question if you don't mind. Thank you.
Well, you're right, I think, to point out that Nigeria in particular is a significant market of opportunities. And I'm happy to say that we have several discussions in Nigeria right now for both 220 and 320 family prospects in this great country. The demographics, the underlying economic characteristics of Nigeria make it a very, very powerful and potential growth market for us. So we're, as a matter of fact, we have a team in Nigeria right now.
The next question goes to flight, David Kaminski.
Good morning. You mentioned the pilot shortage. How much of this so-called pilot shortage is actually a shortage of pilots, and how much of it is a shortage of adequate piloting skills?
Adequate skills.
Maybe Remi, you want to say something about the training center network?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we are anticipating 540,000 pilots to be trained over the next 20 years. And our focus at Airbus Training Services is definitely to maintain and enhance the training standards. And this is valid, we're talking about the pilots, but don't forget as well the mechanics. And you know that it takes longer to train a mechanic than a pilot. And yes, definitely you need the right skills, but I think that was mentioned earlier as well. We are developing new training devices to support this growth in the training services. So there's definitely a challenge, but we're quite happy and prepared to answer to this challenge.
I would like to complement. Remi was mentioning that 4 years ago we had 5 training centers in the world. Now it's 17. So you can imagine that we're doing it not purely from a business case standpoint. We're doing it because we want to extend our ability to connect to our standards in terms of trainings for the pilots, and this is something we're doing. And we also, you noticed that we launched our second Ab Initio pilot school last week. And I think that we want to extend this also network of Ab Initio pilots training schools also to influence the standards of the industry. We are a major actor. We know what we're talking about in terms of what a pilot curriculum should look like, and this is where we are trying to influence the industry.
And there's another avenue how we answer to the pilot shortage, and the keyword is autonomy or single pilot cockpit. And you will learn more about this tomorrow in the slot by Grazia Vitalini and Jean-Brice Dumont tomorrow morning.
Before we go pilot this, I think it's important to add that Airbus has one feature that is very, very unique to our product range, and that is that you can go with very, very minor transition training all the way from a 319 through to 320, 21, 330, 350, 900 and 1000. We have a very, very integrated cockpit technology throughout our product range. That's very, very unique.
Yeah. We have the next question here in the front row, please. It's you, please.
Yeah, thanks, Stefan. I'm Hu Tao from the Xinhua News Agency of China. Thanks for sharing. Just now, I think three of you all shared your starting days when you entered the aviation industry. But during the talk, you talked quite a lot about Airbus innovation, flexibility, and diversibility. To me, they are all about the changes. But I have a curiosity as a fan and also a journalist. As a plane maker, alongside the changes, the great competitions, and the surging demands, what the plane maker you will position, to me, maybe we can call it the initial aspiration.
I have to be honest, I'm not quite sure I understood the question.
I think I got it, and perhaps how to entertain the early, and I'm going to use the word passion, because I think this is what you... We are still an industry where everybody is passionate by the product. And we could say that we need to be as much fascinated by our customer than we are by the product, by the way. I can tell you that whatever the field of expertise that you are having, and I'm going to take the digital journey, I was very much impressed by the willingness of some of the young geeks to join Airbus, because bringing your digital expertise in still an industry which is connecting people, I mean, it makes you dream. And their contribution was, a kind of a door open to their creativity in a world which at the end, nevertheless, I mean, we have some basics: safety, customer satisfaction, and we are probably providing an environment which helps for people to still develop further. And for example, we're talking about versatility, but I can tell you that joining Airbus have all set of jobs, different jobs that you can practice along your career. And we are now, so I think it's not an issue. I think that Christian and I, who are the same age, by the way, are still having the same passion. And the young guys joining are passionate about this industry, and that's great. And Remi, who is much younger, want to add something, I think.
The next question goes to Ben Katz from sorry.
I just wanted to add, I mentioned earlier on that there was one similarity between Airbus helicopters and Airbus commercial, and it was about safety. That's true. But there is another one. It's about passion. I've never been working for Airbus Defence and Space, but I'm sure it's the same in Airbus Defence and Space. And you can see the people, our teams in Airbus, they are proud. They are proud about what they're doing on a daily basis. And this definitely fuels the engagement, the commitment to the company. And this is definitely something that we are leveraging to build the next chapter of Airbus.
Thank you, Remi. And now we have Ben Katz from Bloomberg.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Hello. A couple from me, I guess, slightly more conceptual. It's a really interesting time to be discussing innovation and what the plans are for the future at a time when the industry is still reeling essentially from the incident at your competitors on the other side. And I guess the question is, there's just been, especially from outside the industry, this hyper-focus now on whether, commercial considerations are taking precedent over safety concerns, and I'm just curious how you guys address that. And I guess the second part of this question is the impact on the relationship with the regulators. So, obviously we've heard a lot about how production will change over the next few years, going into, next generation aircraft, as well as just, looking at increasing, the innovation. I'm just wondering what the implication is of the relationship with the regulators and the dynamic that's being investigated now between the FAA and Boeing has on this process. Does it take it longer? Does it make it longer? Does it, slow things down? And then, sorry, a very last one is just, Christian, you were talking about, incremental upgrades being the answer. Why roll out a check for double-digit billion to develop a new program? I guess that entire process has kind of been called into question by the MAX crash, because it was potentially, if you look at it in one way, a stretch too far or an upgrade too far. How do you kind of address that? And I mean, would we be right in taking the temperature of your comments as thinking that by the time we get to 2030, we shouldn't be looking for an entirely new short-range aircraft? Should we just be looking for a re-engined A320? Thanks, guys.
Ben, a lot of comments about them, questions, references to the MAX. I really don't want to comment much on that, but in no particular order. The MAX is not one stretch too many, in my humble opinion. The relationship with the regulator, part of your question, I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong in the relationship that I can judge, which is Airbus's relationship with the regulator. EASA has a slightly different mandate, as you know, than the FAA. EASA is a purely safety-orientated agency. I see from our internal discussions, Philippe, no reason to question the integrity of that relationship. But I really don't want to comment much about the MAX here. Now, on the question of what's the next airplane, what we have to look for, we'll have to see. What we have to look for is to create value for our customer, for ourselves as well, so that we can share that value. If that value is incremental, such as re-engineering or other introduction into existing programs, then that's what we'll do. If the value is the introduction of rupture technology that brings a lot of value and can be done relatively in a controlled risk environment, then that's what we will do. So what you have to look at is the emergence of technologies that actually bring value to where the money comes from, which is the customer. Last comment on my side, but I really like to defer to Philippe. Safety is the first and the last word and concept and obsession that aircraft manufacturers go through in every decision that they make. So whenever there is an accident out there, the first question that gets asked in an Airbus management meeting is, can we learn from it?
No, in terms of perhaps addressing, because let's come back also to some of the basics. I mean, we comply with regulations, both in terms of certification, both in terms of operation for the airlines. We have a product safety process internally, and here combining it, because it's innovation days, I can tell you that we are learning a lot also from the data we're collecting from the operation, which means that we can anticipate on early signals on some degradation of performance, and so which is the job of everybody in the company, especially in the support and engineering side. And we are not just only reactive, we are proactive in terms of safety. So we have a big program called Safety Beyond Standards, which means that we are going further than purely regulation, just to create the barrier in terms of safety that would enhance anyway, at the end, the safety behavior of our product. So this is a I think the Airbus DNA regarding safety, and I can tell you it's a DNA which is shared by many of our suppliers and which is an industry value at the end.